Howdy, I'm the Dreadful DM, or just and today I want to talk about my 1 year journey of trying to become a competent DM. Me and my friends in 2025 started a campaign together where I'm being the dungeon master. And I want to talk about the stuff that I did really good at, the stuff I did really bad at, and areas where I want to improve in hopes I can become a decent storyteller and a pretty good battle planner. If that sounds very interesting to you, or you just want to hear me yap about D&D for like 10-15 minutes, then feel free to tag along, watch the video, like, subscribe if you really enjoy it. But yeah, let's just hop right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is essentially that social anxiety that each dungeon master, each player gets, no matter if you're with your closest friends or with a group of strangers. That idea of just putting yourself out there to kind of be ridiculed or judged depending on how you explain something, on how you might do a voice, or how you set up a battle encounter, all these different aspects of being a dungeon master, of being like, I have to be perfect, I have to be like a Brendan Lee Mulligan, I have to be a Matt Mercer, I have to be almost ready for every type of situation and every sort of type of encounter, and everything gets so bogged down, so you get so afraid. I remember my first session, I was really quiet because I was like, you go here, you go there. I was like, well, I'm gonna be this guy. It wasn't so free flowing, it wasn't natural. Even when I was with close friends, like my partner is in the game and I was afraid to talk to him with as the dungeon master, you know. And it's something that gets so weird. Some of my longest friends was in there and I was just scared because, you know, I was talking about so excited with it, I was building it up like it's gonna be a great time, guys, I'm so fun. When the moment came, I just cracked. In the first couple sessions I was like, oh, this is horrible, they're gonna hate it. But it just, through more time, through more effort, through more practice, just going through the motions, you realize, okay, I can calm down. Not everything's gonna be perfect, not everything is gonna be a dimension 20, a critical role, but I can still have a fun time with my friends. So let me just like calm down a little bit and let me just enjoy them. Let me, you know, talk with them. Let me just try to have every sort of conversation planned out perfectly. There's gonna be some times we're gonna throw some curveballs, and dear God, my players know how to throw some goddamn curveballs. And let me just rock with it. Let me just roll. If it messes up my entire plans, you know what? Okay, let's run it. Assassin, believe that. But yeah, that's just the first thing I want to talk about, just that social anxiety in which you just kind of have to realize like, hey, not everything's gonna be perfect, you just have to push through it, and you're just gonna have to have fun with your friends. Embrace the goofiness, embrace the stuff that doesn't make sense, and just like, hey, you know what, that's the running bit for like the next 5 sessions. I still remember when I like writing down on paper, and for some reason locked onto like, oh yeah, writing down on paper, dude, I hate them so much. Next session I'm gonna blow them up. So the next thing I want to talk about is the battle encounters. You know what? If one thing I can say I did pretty good with, it was balancing the battle encounters. I say that, but my first time I had that session, I almost killed my partner. Typically, I was afraid that I would throw too many people or not have enough of them. But slowly but surely, it became apparent that my players actually got really enjoyable time from the encounters. It's kind of difficult to initially start them off with because there was one martial guy and 2 like hard casters, and so trying to balance in that, I just threw a bunch of like ground like grunts at them, and hopefully let's see how that goes. But it turns out my sweet friend assassin, the guy who's actually editing this video, he's a monk, so he just did a lot of grappling and neutralized all my people essentially, while the other guys were kind of just throwing ping damage over there and using shatter on them, and it was kind of went through the combats. But they had a fun time because I kind of had good lead ups to those battles and good type of timings for it. Maybe while the battle itself would be a little lackluster, maybe a little easier than expected, they still had fulfillment of it because they thought the characters were cool, and that's one thing I want to be. I'm not trying to be an oppressive DM that's trying to be like, no, I'm going to make you feel in this world of pain and darkness so that you have no chance. And then there are going to be some times where they kind of just mop the floor with people, and I think I have a really good times with them just straight up knocking out some jobbers, you know what I mean, stuff like that. And another aspect, I feel like for my bosses, I feel like I've had pretty good boss encounters where they've had running out of materials or running out of spell slots, or they're actually doing some good damage, because this is more my like the guy I mentioned earlier, the monk guy. Well, I kind of had some people where if you touch him you might get some infect, like some poison damage or some bleeding. That was really cool, maybe just using his main strength against him, and so that was a fun aspect. So that made the spellcasters a lot more viable, and they had a really fun time using the spells and stuff like that. I feel like my planning, setup, or just scening for battles have been been really decent. I really enjoyed that they've just had prolonged times of trying to figure out, should I do this, should I do this, talking with each other and trying to ultimately battle. It didn't feel like a slog or like, okay, this is the 80th goblins in the corner and stuff like that. It's very enjoyable when like at least one aspect of starting off with all your battles and stuff like that actually turns out well. At least one thing stands out, whether it be the set piece, the actual enemies, or the story behind it. I feel like every time going into the battle, it actually melded pretty well. And even when there was supposed to be a giant battle happen, but they actually do some Hitman stuff and stealth their way in, I rock with it and I roll with it and we'll see how it goes. All that aspects of just trying to not force anything down the throat became really apparent with all my battles, but it felt like at least on my side of things, I never felt I forced them to go into play the game my way. I always like kind of almost like dance together in a way that I kind of followed what they did. I followed their lead and kind of just played into them more. And does that give them a little bit of advantage inherently? Maybe a little bit, but it's also a fun time for me trying to figure out if I'm going to do like this, how can I set up the battle? How can I arrange the enemies when I'm planning everything and everything like that, and try to give them a fair but fun fight at the same time. And that's some aspect I felt really good at. So something I want to talk about that I got progressively better at as the campaign went along is interacting with my players. At the very start of the campaign, I kind of mentioned earlier, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I have to try to have like every interaction like perfectly with them, and I'm kind of scared to talk to them, so I'm going to be like every NPC is essentially going to be like the same person. There's going to be just me, and it's going to be like just like slightly different motivations, and then yeah, and now I'm kind of just straight up flirting with my boys. It's only I kiss the homies goodnight every opportunity I get. I introduced some characters, some like romance people that it wasn't even meant for romance. They just kind of stuck to them, and I'm okay with actually having romance in the games because I'm the DM and I can kind of cut it off if I get weirded out if they're doing too much of it or they're taking too much time. I feel more control and power in that way in terms of just keeping stuff in track. Not like, yes, I control your love life, but more like, hey, we're supposed to go fight like a dragon a little bit. Let's calm down. Let's not be dragging something else through, exactly. But just interacting with my players. Originally, when I'm just doing that weird voice, when I was just like, I had to feel like every person was essentially the same because I was too scared to like act in different ways, have different voices, or do something like this. Different, just ways of personifying a character and giving them their own type of life and own type of vibe and everything like that. I was afraid, so it was just my regular voice essentially, and me just kind of be like, oh yeah, I'm the evil guy, or I'm the good guy, and stuff like that. Not so fun. But as time went along, kind of my tone changed a little bit, my inflections, I did a little bit of accents and stuff like that. Every little aspect of me just trying to become more comfortable, not trying to, but just becoming more comfortable with interacting with players, and maybe more goofy ways and more situations where I wouldn't. This is the second time in my DMing career where I've had someone just straight up flirt with me, and it's like, you know what, we had some fun times, and I'm able to like jump from different person to person and have almost a completely different interaction. It doesn't feel exactly the same because I'm presenting a different type of way. I'm not just talking the same way. It's a fun time being able to, even maybe I'm not even using the accent between different interactions, but a whole different character is able to be elicited from the way I like stutter or the way I speak, how strong I hit the consonants or something like that. Just weird things that maybe when you're like actual, going for improv actor, you're like, oh yeah, that's this exact term I'm explaining right now. But I'm a nerd. I have a goddamn physics degree. I'm not used to all this. I'm afraid of talking to people, especially girls. But cut that. Assassin, cut that. But yeah, but it's so much fun just being able to be not myself so much, but easier with just not being myself, easier being a romance interest, easier being a villain, easier being some guy from like random corner saying, oi, because I can't do a British accent to save my life, so that's all I can do. Stuff like that. It's so fun just being not so uptight and so loose. I'm so anxious that I can't really talk because I'm afraid of looking dumb. I'm playing a goth baddie with a wolf cut for my friend now, and I'm like, yeah, this is it. And he's having too much fun, and I'm getting a little bit afraid, but it's really cool. And I'm having a fun time just being not myself, essentially. I know it's kind of weird. You're gonna be yourself, but I'm not being myself. I'm not a baddie with a wolf cut. Don't you want me to be? Don't do that, assassin, please. It's a whole aspect of me just stepping out of the comfort zone and me just embodying different characters, whether that be in small ways, large ways, putting on different accents, different ways I pronounce things, or just how my speed of my speed slower down, the way I'm more frantic, all different aspects of portraying just different characters that give each character a different set of life. Like recently, in my most recent session, there was Bob the Plant, who spoke with a very self-righteous, while they bourgeoisie got me down, they burned my family to the stakes, but I will rule the day, rule them every single stuff like that. I was kind of coming straight from the dome. I wasn't really prepared to do Bob at this moment, so I might make some little crap. But in the moment, it was pretty cool. It's supposed to be like, yes, either I die or I will kill them all, kind of thing. But it's supposed to be just one of those like crying little plants from Harry Potter, essentially. And it just made it into like a very self-righteous, hating man of a plant. And stuff like that. Like, I would never do that at the beginning of this like campaign because I'd be too scared, because that sounds so dumb. Like, who would ever want to do that? But I realized I'm really dumb and I would like to do that. And just progressing and doing stuff that's like, hey, I want to do that. That's fun. Let me try something. Let me try a different voice. Let me try to be a little more like, try to produce a female voice. Maybe I can't really go that. Oh god damn, dude, cut that. I can't really do like a very like high pitched like feminine. I'm not saying that every like feminine voice is high pitched, but I can't really go higher. Like so maybe just a different way of tones, or maybe just like different aspects. I could try to produce more of a feminine type of presentation towards something, which is kind of be a little bit difficult because you can see I'm a chud, dude. Like, I'm not exactly the most feminine type of guy, but I could try different aspects. I could try different ways of showing the most buff masculine guy, even though I'm not that. Just different ways of just trying to present different characters and show them that, hey, each NPC is a little bit unique compared to the next one. It's not just me yapping in different type of ways, or me just doing X, Y, and Z in different ways. It's just stuff like that that I really get into, and I had a really fun just embodying and improving as a campaign went along. But yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about for this aspect. Yeah, but the next thing I want to talk about is something I want to actively try and get better at, because many times throughout the campaign, when I'm setting up an interaction or an encounter, or when I'm trying to have some RP moments and saying like, hey, we should do this, but how should we handle this, X, Y, and Z, or A, B, C? And I'm like, what do you guys think? Most of my players are just kind of silent, except for my main friend Assassin, who is really more involved with D&D, who is more experienced with it. I've DM'd for him before. And he's like, okay, then let me just start their ball rolling. But for my partner and for my other guy, Alex, they're both, I guess, more timid because it's the first time playing Dungeons and Dragons. Even after a year, this still requires a lot more oomph to get them going. And I'm trying to find better ways to, get them more comfortable in situations. They feel to speak up first. So they can feel like they can express the character's motivations and stuff like this. I know part of it is just simply time and patience and them getting more comfortable with D&D in general, which has been showing some signs of it here and there. But there's still plenty of times recently in the last 3 sessions I can count, I think 2 instances where they're still very quiet and don't want to speak up so much, because it's on the other side. I think this whole social anxiety is very scary. It's very worrying about the idea that you're going to make fun of yourself or make an ass of yourself, because you're like, I'm going to try a different voice, I'm going to try playing my character, how they would think, how they would talk, and stuff like that. So just bump to the mic, sorry about that. But stuff like that, it's just something I'm trying to improve at and trying to actively change. Maybe the way I approach something, the way I engage them, the way I like, hey, it's your turn to speak. Maybe not so much being like, hey dude, what do you guys think? Or being more like, so we could do this or this, and leave more entryways within the conversation. They can like speak up, say their mind, or do something like that, or give them an opportunity more, not just so bluntly, but more smoothly, I guess you could say. Just find different ways for them to interact, change, or do something with RP moments within battles. Give them the opportunity to play out the characters, so it's not just them speaking the whole time, but they can also interact while as a character. It's just something I'm trying to work at and something I'm trying to get improved after all my time. But yeah, so that's another aspect I'm trying to fix that. So one of the last things I'm going to talk about is something I'm just bad at in general that I'm going to try to get better at, but it's something I'm not sure if I ever will be, because it's not really something I try to focus too much on, and that's world building. Kind of the small aspects of the layout of the places, the scenery in which a whole event takes place, or the towns and stuff like that. I don't put too much emphasis on that when talking about the campaign. What I mean by that is not so much like, oh yeah, I can give a general layout of the cities, the towns, but I focus more on like individual areas that I try to put more life into, like the set pieces I set up, into the maps I actually have. But in the overarching world, it's like the main towns or forests or stuff like that. I don't do so much on the larger scale, on the macro scale. I do much more on the micro and kind of what they can see, because I do an owl bear rodeo, so it's a lot easier for me to kind of just have a map there, and they can just focus more on that. Not so much like with a couple blocks down, like the little streets, or like how they're decrepit and old and haven't been maintained because the service crews have been on strike for the last year, so there's trash piling up, stuff like that. I don't do focus more on that. I focus more on the bar they're kind of hiding out, and the smell of like of just stale beer, you know, weird stains out of each like booth and stuff like that. Even I don't even do too much into that. It's more like interacting between different characters. So the general macro world building on the situation and on the kingdom, on the forest, on the towns they pass through, that stuff I'm not too good at, and that's something I want to get better at, but it's not something I feel like I have to strive to be 100% perfect at, because it's something that, like, if I don't do this it's gonna make my whole campaign like crumble. That's not something I really strive for the DMing, because maybe especially for this campaign, it's more noir, more centralized between the characters, more of a mystery cult-like epic bloodlines, vampires, whatever that game is called, that whole aspect of it, more interpersonal, not so much on the macro like political spectrum so much. So it's something, it depends on the campaign, but that's something I've noticed that kind of lacking on the kind of overall macro world building, which maybe I can get better at within this coming session, since we're more in the kingdom and not just some rinky-dink town gone like that buttfuck nowhere or something like that. So that's something I can get better at, and I want to get better at. It's something I just realized, like, yeah, that's one aspect I can probably get real better at. So the last thing I want to talk about for now, this might be a part 2 to it, or depending how I go about it, but it's kind of just me being okay with it. I'm not going to be perfect. This kind of goes to the first thing of the social anxiety and being like, I have to be perfect, but it's kind of like it's more than that, because there's so many times throughout, you know, YouTube with Dimension 20, Critical Role, or Instagram, or different reels, or YouTube Shorts. There's so many different ways that people are just yelling at you like, hey, this is how you beat, this is how you run the perfect first game, perfect session 0. This is how you set up your big enemy, the big boss. No. I kind of missed the lyrics, but you know what I mean. Stuff like that. I hit the mic again. But it's just something that I find so, I guess, difficult to grapple with. Not difficult, but it's something that I just kind of have to accept, that no matter how hard I try personally, this is not my career. This is not my like entire livelihood. I wasn't born to do this. I wasn't molded in like years of surrounded by improv or comedy or just like writing. It's gonna be something I have as a hobby and something I can enjoy. It's not something I have to put so much pressure on to be perfect, or to do this, or to have some certain perfect payoff or some enemy, or maybe there's gonna be some, you know, god damn, you know, plot holes. There are going to be some forgotten characters that are really interesting, but I just forgot to add them and stuff. There's going to be so many different things within this campaign and within my whole journey that I could pick out if I would really want to be so anal about it and be like, oh, I could have done that better, I could have done that better. But this is a hobby, and this goes back to my other video of just enjoying my hobbies and being okay with that. I'm okay with the fact that I'm not going to 100% be perfect at it, not be a true fan or that whole thing. It's just going to be something I'm going to just try to enjoy and just revel in the fact that I get to spend time with my friends, and the fact that I have this opportunity like once a week, or maybe once like every month, or so whatever the time frame may be, that I can spend some time with my friends in some fantasy world that I'm making up, and they just tend to beg for it at this point. Especially Alex, he really likes D&D, and there's the one main island that he has. So I'll try to do more better with more sessions more often. Alex, I'm sorry, man, but you know, stuff like that. It's just something that it's fun, kind of taking that pressure off myself that I have to be the perfect DM. I have to find ways to improve to being a perfect DM, because it's no longer my journey to like rival the gods of Brennan Lee Mulligan and Matt Mercer. Now it's like, hey, can I get to a point where I feel like I competent in my own mind, that I can feel okay with the stories I tell, great with the battles I plan, and every aspect that I'm not gonna be the perfect world builder. That's one aspect I still need to improve a lot at, with the world building and trying to explain the whole thing and trying to build the whole thing from the ground up, like I was talking about earlier. It's kind of a little bit difficult for myself, and it's aspects that maybe I have some weak points, and that's going to be okay, because ultimately I'm going to have my style of DMing. That's not going to be the same as my friend Assassin's or Alex's whenever he eventually wants to DM. Stuff like that. Everyone's going to have their own strong suits, their own weaknesses, their own drawbacks. But ultimately, if you focus so much on like, oh, if I min-max my whole thing, if I make sure that if I do okay over here and do a little bit okay over here, stuff like that. It's like, you're not going to try to like gamify this TTRPG, D&D, like, Yuck the Bold, whatever you want to call it. Shout out. But and when trying to gamify everything and try to do the most optimal route, it's not a fun way to play D&D. You're just gonna have to enjoy it and understand that, hey, something's gonna be good, something's gonna be bad, but the time you spend with your friends is gonna be ultimately the most payoff you can get from a campaign, from a session, from just an interaction, from a battle. All of that is ultimately just meld together for a fun, just interactive time that you can look back at. Hit the mic again, goddammit. You can look back at it and just be happy with the time you put in and proud of what you presented with your friends. But I'll end it there for now, y'all. Hopefully it's going to be like a 10 to 15 minute kind of video for y'all. I actually have an editor this time. I'm not that big to have an editor, but my friend offered to be like, hey, I can edit some of your stuff. He's edited some stuff in the past, like really good videos, a lot better than mine, but they're more gaming, so this is more like talking head videos. So see how it goes. If you guys like it, then I hope just like give him $10 every time I do this, because it's kind of just a hobby. It's not too much for us to go through, but it's very nice and I very much appreciate it. It's one of my players, Assassin, I kind of mentioned a couple of times. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy. If you have any critiques for this new editing style, I don't think it's gonna be too drastically different. It might be. He's gonna surprise me. We're gonna see what happens. But yeah, leave your thoughts and comments about different ways you try to get better at being a DM. It's difficult, it's hard, different ways you can try to aim to improve aspects of stuff you found yourself really good at. I'm just having a hard time just trying to world building is my main thing that I absolutely suck at, the macro sense. But yeah, but I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you have anything else you want to talk about in the comments, feel free. If you want to like and subscribe, I'm not gonna complain about that either, but I'm gonna stop taking too much of your time and I shall leave you all there. Yeah, but I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. It's always sunny outside. I'm not sure what I'm talking about. I'm kind of yapping now. I'm kind of scared because I'm afraid this video is going to look dumb because my friends will make fun of me. But yeah, going on a walk is good for yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. And yeah, I'll talk to you all later.